Hey guys, Dov here with a very special High Elves multicast. So recently I cast a game featuring ALARIELLE, and Ceramation decided to send me a bunch of replays featuring not ALARIELLE, which is awesome. ALARIELLE is very much considered to be the meta these days, and a lot of people kind of see her as kind of boring. I sort of agree with that to a large extent. Certainly she's not as interesting as this guy right here, Olithanar, so strap yourselves in. We've got a few non-ALARIELLE gameplay, non-ALARIELLE battles coming to you today. So, ready for some great gameplay. We've got Olithanar here up against the Dwarves with bolt throwers. I guess the idea here, Ceramation can let us know in the comments. I'm just guessing that the idea here is enforced Dawi cardio, right? So you have the tools to deal with Dawi artillery with the bolt throwers, and Olithanar, they can kind of potentially outshoot dwarf cannons and force your dwarf opponent out of their box. You can then kind of kite them with these archers to a degree. You've got some white lions here, Lore Master of Hoeth with just Earthblood, so just looking for that sustained healing. Very good stuff. As for the dwarves, Thorgrim Grudgebearer are going to be leading a hammer rush. He's got two hammers, some dwarf warriors with great weapons as well, iron breakers, dwarf warriors, and quarrelers. So definitely a bit of a headstrong build. The kind of the anti-artillery tools aren't going to be wildly useful here, but they can certainly be pressed into service against infantry, just one-shotting, especially these iron breaker models on single-shot mode. This is the reason why you use the single-shot mode, because even though, I mean, technically the scattershot is for anti-infantry, like, unless your opponent's really blobbed up, the best you can hope for is to just pick away models with the single bolts, and they definitely can do that decently well. You can see we've got some white lions getting engaged over here. Over on the far side, dwarf warriors, some Illyrian reavers as well, push up and around the flank to try and get at those quarrelers. In the center, though, we've got the hammerers coming in. It's going to be a pretty rough engagement, although the dwarfs are blobbing up quite a bit. These hammerers definitely needed to come up and around and try and engage on the side. As it is, these white lions will be able to hold for quite a while due to the fact that, these dwarfs are very much blobbed up right there. But out on the flanks here, we've got white lions engaging iron breakers. Since the iron breakers didn't use their charges, it's actually not going to be the best engagement for them. They do have very high melee defense, but you can see how Ceramation's kind of cross-firing his bolt throwers right here. This is an excellent play. Rather than trying to shoot the one that's directly in front of them, they're using their good angles to fire into the side and rear of these formations here. It's really, really excellent work, kind of spread artillery, crossfire. Great stuff. Meanwhile, the archers are just kind of kiting, picking away, dragging units away, and the protection for these quarrelers is gone. Now, reavers don't have the best AP or damage in general, but they do have a pretty good charge bonus, so ping-ponging back and forth between these two quarreler units will be able to do some effective damage. And as long as they don't stay in combat too long, quarrelers don't have that good of offensive stats, so they won't take too much damage, especially with that martial prowess active. So, pretty good stuff. It's going to be close, though. Dwarfs are definitely resilient, and, spearmen, other units kind of getting worn down. The white lions that were in the center did absolutely get beaten down eventually. Likewise, over here, these spearmen holding up a number of dwarf forces as well. The white lions also, they are getting worn down over time, so let's check in. I'm not sure exactly where the Lore Master got off to. He's around here somewhere. Oh, yeah, it looks like he took quite a bit of damage in this engagement, probably getting the Oath of Vengeance from Thorgrim and getting attacked by hammerers. He's a relatively squishy guy in terms of HP. He has a pretty small HP pool, but going to be able to get some Earthblood in there to get himself back up to strength. Just keep this pocket fighting, at least for some time. Hold up and allow these bolt throwers to get their work done. And Olithanar, of course, he's basically like a mobile single-model bolt thrower, more or less. Actually does, like, double the damage. Yeah, more than double the damage of one of these bolt throwers, so he's literally like a 2-in-1 in terms of bolt thrower models. And, of course, can run around and do other things as well. He's also got the moonbow here. So, yeah, interesting. The bolt throwers are eventually going to get compromised, though. This one, a little bit of a mistake by the dwarf player here. You want to send a multi-model unit to take out artillery. Sending in a single model like this, oftentimes, especially if the artillery's on guard mode, like he'll come in and attack an individual crewman, and it won't actually dismount the artillery crew. Whereas if he had sent in this unit of dwarf warriors, for example, they could have actually shut down this artillery piece. Like right here, like these hammers, you can see how they saturate in there and just absolutely wreck the Eagle Claw Bolt Thrower crew. So you definitely want a multi-model unit to attack that artillery. But you can see right here, these Iron Breakers eventually do lose out to the White Lines with the rear fire from those archers, so great value there. The White Lions can then switch over and try and help with these hammers, or else just chase down those Iron Breakers, make sure they shatter. And yeah, you can see the Runesmith has taken out quite a bit of the crew here, but he is going to now get engaged by a handful of White Lions and some other units, so yeah, just really wasn't able to shut down that artillery piece. The Loremaster of Hoeth also kind of swinging up and around this formation, unifying with these White Lions here to get a nice blob Earthblood there, and allow these White Lions to get a good rear charge. Doesn't sound like much, but 22 charge bonus on White Lions, not too bad. They are going to get some pretty decent hits on those, the hammers especially don't have the best melee defense in the world, but man, Lithnar's Moonbow comes scything through there, takes out quite a few models. Let's check in with him. 61 kills, pretty good stuff, especially now firing into like this elite Dawi infantry. But the Loremaster has to be careful. If he dives back in against the hammers, he will get beat up pretty bad, especially with the Oath of Vengeance from Thorgrim, so definitely something to consider there. Over here, these archers got chased all the way to the edge of the map, but those Dwarf Warriors definitely paid a pretty big price for it. Likewise, these hammers getting pulled away out of position by those archers there. Illyrian Reavers pretty much mopped up most of the Quarrelers. Yeah, you can see them finishing off that unit there. And at this point, the White Lions that had engaged those hammers in the center do go down, but it looks like the Loremaster throws himself in just to force one last little blob here, see if they can finish off this unit of hammers, do some damage to Thorgrim. Probably going to pay the ultimate price here, but Thorgrim does count as large, so he will take extra damage from those bolt throwers. And now in this late game here, these bolt throwers that remain, 2 of them, can continue to fire in and get effective damage. He's going to throw an Earthblood on himself just to get a last little bit of HP. He's almost heal capped, but yeah, he's probably just going to get straight up KO'd here, I would imagine. Oh, yep, he's gone. Your sacrifice will not be in vain, Loremaster. Balance power is still pretty close, but the High Elves have a pretty good position here. They can continue to kite, use these Illyrian Reavers, and Ilithnar is no slouch in melee. I mean, 67 melee attack for a quote-unquote ranged lord has to be like one of the highest in the game. That's really, really strong, actually. 400 weapon strength is also pretty decent. I mean, he's not a pushover in terms of a combatant whatsoever, so he can run in here in the late game and potentially beat up, like, Thorgrim's last little bit of HP. Thorgrim does have pretty hefty attack as well, so he'll hit Lithnar pretty hard, but yeah, with the support of, like, these Reavers, potentially some infantry to help distract, and of course the Bolt Throwers picking away, using their last bit of ammunition here. The Reaver's actually going to come in and disrupt the advance here, make sure those bolt throwers can continue firing. Archers shooting the hammerers. Great stuff. Way out here on the side, these Dwarf Warriors, you can see their low offensive stats, and the archers with their martial prowess, actually 26 defense. They hold out for quite some time against those Dwarf Warriors, even on the edge of the map there, due to the just low offensive output there. So, yeah, Thorgrim is going to eventually give up the fight here in the center, and that will cause the Dwarf player to throw in the towel. So a beautiful victory with the Lithanar. Very, very nice build from Sarmation. And how about that? No ALARIELLE double Noble Chariots against the Dwarves. Beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. I love it. And for the Dwarf side, also, Hammer Rush is pretty interesting against the High Elves. I might try and find the funds to potentially... I mean, Slayers is something you absolutely need. Like, I would even maybe just cut out... Definitely, I would take these Dwarf Warriors with great weapons, take 2 of them with shields, maybe cut the other 2, and take... For sure, you need at least 1 unit of Slayers. Dragonback Slayers, preferably, but you need Slayers. Yeah, and then from there, I might try and find the funds to upgrade one of the hammers to the Peak Gate Guard. Just in case they bring something like Dragon Princes or something with a bit of physical resistance, that magic damage can actually come in very handy. And also just the better offensive stats and defensive stats means they hit super, super hard even without the Oath of Vengeance. Yeah, it's an interesting one, but let's go ahead and get to the next replay without further talking from me. Next up, we've got Teclis, who is my personal preferred non-ALARIELLE lord. Teclis has got a lot of upside on some different abilities, so let's check in what he's got here. It looks like just Nets and Enfeebling Foe. No... regrowth. Does have Shield of Sapphire, Wildheart, and of course Kindle Flame. The net's going to be synergizing particularly, and Kindle Flame with the Sisters of Avalorn. He's got 2 of them. Also got some Lothern Sea Guard, White Lions, a front line of Spearmen. And yeah, that's pretty much it. So a pretty light heroic core, no monsters. And I guess we do have some Silver Helms with shields for a little bit of mass and punch. Up against the Dark Elves, Morathi coming in the air. We've got a Master as well to help protect. A couple Harpies, Dark Riders with shields. Let's see, 3 Cold One Knights, bunch of Bleak Swords, 2 units of Executioners, and Dark Shards. Yeah, so both players with no terror-causing units is pretty interesting. That's something you don't often see. But, I mean, Teclis is a terror in the night in and of himself, although he does not cause terror, so let's see what he can do here. The Harpy's going to rush in, try and bog down those Sisters of Avalorn. Sisters of Avalorn have good enough melee defense that they're not going to take a lot of damage from this. At best, the Harpies can hope to just delay them from firing, but the Dark Riders here getting chased off by some Silver Helms, Morathi and the Master kind of scything in, and just the timing of the Dark Elf advance wasn't quite on point. I think those Harpies should have been delayed a little bit. Bolt Throwers also getting some good damage in on the Cold One Knights. They push around to the flanks. I mean, they are going to run into Lothern Sea Guard, which are a decent target for them, but Lothern Sea Guard likewise also have anti-large, of course, and a very nice overcast net actually catches 2 units of Cold One Knights, allows these Sisters of Avalorn to just pour in some fire point blank. With that Kindle Flame, get a little bit of extra damage. Kindle Flame doesn't last too long there, but it does allow for a little bit of extra damage, and the White Lions can also rush in and kind of respond to this engagement. Over here on this side, Morathi going to dive down from the air and get herself a little bit surrounded. She's got her Master Friend to, I use that term friend very loosely, by the way, to help in this fight. Nice Soul Stealer, yep, will pop a bunch of these Silver Helms as well, do a bunch of damage, so this actually isn't a terrible engagement from Morathi. Meanwhile, on the front line, you can see these Hargoneth Executioners crumping quite a few different units. They're going to come in and get a pretty good side charge in on these White Lions. That's a very good engagement for them. Basically the best they could hope for. I'm not the biggest fan of Executioners. I do think the ROR is very, very good, but just the base Executioners I don't think are super strong, but a beautiful Fiery Convocation, bound Fiery Convocation from Teclis wrecks this unit of Executioners. It is going to do a bunch of friendly damage to those Spearmen, basically finish them off, but that was value in terms of taking out a lot of those Executioners, so probably worth it at the end of the day. Dark Shards, though, pouring in some devastating rear fire here. Morathi has taken quite a bit of damage. She's going to try and pull away from that engagement, but yeah, the Hargoneth Executioners and Bleak Swords pushing through on this front are potentially going to be a bit of a problem. Sisters of Avalorn, though, can finally get disengaged and start to get some effective fire. This one has helped kind of win out on this flank, this engagement. These Silver Helms, everyone kind of supporting each other. Teclis as well getting in there and mixing it up a little bit in combat. So things already looking pretty decent for the High Elves right off the bat. The Executioners have taken a lot of Overwatch fire from the Sisters, and see them starting to get more good fire in there as well. Yeah, these Sisters of Avalorn, maybe not so much. They've only got 6 kills, and they've mostly been engaged by Cav this entire time. But, I mean, credit where credit's due. Their melee defense has kept a little less than half of them alive. They've still got pretty good damage output, potentially. But nice rear charge from some Dark Riders here. Will do decent damage to those Silver Helms. Try and bail out Morathi, or, sorry, just the Master. Looks like Morathi is potentially, yep, she's over here. Not done yet. Bolt Thrower is somehow still online as well, with some chevrons that had been, you know, pre-bought before the battle started. That way it has better refire rates and accuracy. And with most of the Cold One Knights being taken out, the Silver Helms are actually in a pretty good position here to try and cycle charge like these last Executioners to death, secure the Sisters of Avalorn. Morathi's going to go after Teclis, which is potentially a problem. She can do pretty well in a 1v1 versus Teclis, but he can, on the flip side, enfeebling foe to help swing that a little bit and help himself survive a little longer here. Also pop a Potion of Troy, potentially, if he needs to as well. So he should be able to not die instantly, which is, I guess, the best that could be hoped for in this type of a situation. I don't know if he'll actually get any damage without the Sword of Teclis, but he can at least survive. Maybe not take too many hits from Morathi. Sisters of Avalorn here fending off the last of these Harpies. It's pretty much just the Master. We've got a handful of Dark Shards here. Silver Helms go shut them down, or just help clean up the rest of this infantry, I guess. We've got a few Lothern Sea Guard also coming back. But all of a sudden, Teclis realizes that he has taken a lot of damage. Potion of Troy is going to give him some damage resistance and regenerate his HP. He's got a little bit of White Lions to screen him out there. Even if it's just for a moment, it does block up Marathi and distract her so he can free himself, so nice play there. Soul Stealer's going to go on Teclis at this point, try and finish him off, but he can pull back towards his own forces, get particularly these Silver Helms will be nice for screening out Marathi, and of course, he might have pocket nets as well, can net and just shoot Marathi with these Sisters of Avalorn here, especially this now that the southern unit's mostly free. These Harpies coming back might be able to bog them down, but we'll see. It looks like here comes the net. Master, though, is still free, so he can still come after Teclis, but he's going to have to make a decision. Come after Teclis or try and shut down these Sisters. The Sisters are, of course, doing damage to Marathi. Teclis is a high-value target, so he chooses to engage on the Sisters, try and keep them from firing, but the southern unit does get a shot there. Bolt throwers get a couple shots, potentially. Will it be enough? Hard to say. The bolt thrower is finally getting compromised here, but now that these Sisters are kind of far back and secure, they can start shooting in and taking out the last of these Executioners. They can try and take out, the Master here. Got a bunch of High Elf units coming back from route over here as well. Balance of power is not looking great, though. Dark Elves have been able to swing things back quite a bit, but the Silver Helm is coming back and finally shutting down these Dark Shards, even just for a moment. Pretty decent stuff. I mean, the Dark Shards have good enough stats that they're not going to die instantly. And, I mean, there's just 16 Silver Helms, right, versus 64 Dark Shards, so just the numbers game there isn't really in their favor. But Bolt Thrower gets finished off. Teclis sitting in a protection position here. And the Lothern Sea Guard are back. Unfortunately, those Silver Helms really weren't able to win against those Dark Shards and are going to get finished off, so now mobility advantage definitely lies with the Dark Elves with their 2 flying units. Teclis, though, still has plenty of cap space left. He can regenerate with the Potion of Charoi. These Harpies as well. I mean, this is, again, nice thing about Sisters of Avalorn in the late game. 38 melee defense for a skirmish unit is good enough that Harpies just really can't hit them very hard. I mean, the Bleak Swords really can't hit them very hard. Got White Lions coming back, and one more net for Marathi just to keep her for sure out of the fight. The Master is nowhere to be seen, so the physical resistance won't be helping versus Lothern Sea Guard. Marathi does actually have some innate magic resistance, which I consistently forget about. It's not a lot, but 25%. She's basically like a dwarf in disguise. And the missile resistance means that she'll mitigate some of the damage from the Sisters of Avalorn, but of course that Kindle Flame definitely helps kind of swing that back, and just the fact she has no armor whatsoever is a pretty big problem. So it's just the Dark Shards now, and Marathi and the Master. Dark Shard's going to be using the last of their ammunition. We'll probably fast forward a little bit as they use the last of their ammunition. Lothern Sea Guard and the Sisters of Avalorn also using up the last of their ammunition as Marathi and the Master go after Teclis rather than trying to dive any of these different archer groups. But diving down, they're just going to continue to take pressure from all angles here because there's different High Elf units that have ammunition kind of scattered around. Not only that, but Teclis himself, I mean, with an enfeebling foe, he does have, 35 charge bonus, 38 attack, 40 defense, so he's not a complete pushover. On the charge especially, he maybe could get a hit or two, especially on Marathi with only 40 melee defense. And of course, she does have her debuff auras, so it's obviously not quite that high in practice, but her melee defense is higher in practice, I should say. Your unit's melee attack is lower, right? But looks like Melkoth's Mystifying Miasma again being used on Teclis. I'm not really sure if this is just for the slow exactly or what, but one more bound Fiery Convocation gonna go here. Nope, looks like it was canceled out, and Enfeebling Foe popped on Marathi, so if she does dive down, it's gonna be, worse situation for her. The Master was routed off by the Bowfire. He's only 200 HP anyway. And here comes Teclis for the rear charge. Gets a beautiful rear charge on Marathi. She is actually full of arrows. And that will be enough to win for the High Elves. So a very close game. And a nice win for Teclis. Good use of the Silver Helms there. And the Sisters, I mean, one of them, their saga was definitely fighting in melee. The other one was able to get a little bit better fire at range, but man, 203 kills on those Hargoneth Executioners. I was talking bad about them, and then of course they promptly proved me wrong. Also, 103 kills and a Chevron on Dark Shards is pretty good. I don't often see Dark Shards used very effectively. It's because a lot of infantry skirmish units, depending on the type, they just can get compromised very easily, and Dark Shards, especially because of their tight formation, they die to so many things. But a very nice use of them here. Fortunately, it wasn't quite enough. Teclis able to get some good kills with his fiery convocations, keep that support up. Lothern Seaguard also did excellently. 54 kills and a chevron here. 77 and 70 from the Silver Helms is pretty nice. So just nice kills kind of spread all around. Very fun battle. And yeah, well, we've got 2 more to get to. So without further ado, let's go there. Next up, we have a pick that I think this is the first time I've actually seen used in a multiplayer match, which is the Princess on an Eagle. It's basically like a Glady with no nets. She does have a volley of high arrows, though, and martial prowess. Loose gives her extra reload skill and other units nearby. As for the rest of the army, we've got Spearmen, White Lions, 5 Lothern Seaguard with shields, and Lore Master of Hoeth. Looks like he's got Spirit Leech and Earthblood this time. 1 unit of Dragon Princes as well for a single elite. And again, no terror, this time versus the Greenskins, which is definitely an interesting choice. Got Orc Biggins up front and some boys. Looks like Black Orcs. Grimgore here leading the way, which is already bonus points. Looks like 2 Night Goblin Shamans. Yeah, I don't know where the other one went, but yeah, right here. Got some Orc Boar Boy Biggins as well. So pretty interesting Greenskins build. A couple of more Orc Boys here, so some nice numbers which can potentially be good against the High Elves, but being forced into this position might not be the best here. We'll see. The Lothern Seaguard can generate great value against the Biggins in particular. Biggins do have 50 armor, which is pretty good, but it's not great, definitely. The Princess on the Eagle also can generate good value. If she can spot these Night Goblin Shamans, she can probably pick them off pretty quickly with her bow. I like the Princess actually quite a bit on the Star Dragon, just because it's a Star Dragon with a ranged attack, which in and of itself is innately very strong. And I don't know if it works super well, but oh man, what is this? Double... What? Absolute mad lad coming in here with the double... Oh man, curse the midnight, or not midnight wind, curse the bad moon, obviously. Look at these double bad moons going full Pac-Man on this backline. Too bad they don't do a ton of damage. They actually do a pretty good amount of damage, but for the amount of winds of magic expended there, probably wasn't worth it at the end of the day. Orc Biggins trying to work their way up and around the flanks here. These Black Orcs also kind of blobbing in against the spears. They probably wanted to get a charge on those White Lions, but in the back line, the Orc boys are going to find out very quickly that Lothern Seaguard do in fact have spears, although they're able to do some good damage on the charge. A couple of the Skulkers that I failed to spot earlier also coming in, and oh man, this is a bad day for the boys. Taking a charge, an open field charge from these Dragon Princes. It looks like they're able to pull away somewhat, but the Princess also coming in and bogging up some of those unit models so the Dragon Princes can get in there, get those lances in, stick those pigs. Beautiful stuff. Those Orc boys are basically deleted. And then they can just immediately overrun probably into the flank of these Biggins perhaps, or just pull away maybe. Don't want to get smoke bombed by those Skulkers who are somehow routing to Lothern Seaguards. Which is, you know, typical Skulkers. Also a nice Orc blob here. Quite a few units. I guess there's Spearmen and White Lions there, but still way too blobbed up in my opinion. A nice Gorkle Fix-It. Yeah, also kind of questionable. I guess to prevent these Dragon Princes from coming in here and trying to support, but you definitely want the melee attack buff in that situation, just because the Gorkle Fix-It, speed and charge bonus, I mean, protect against the Dragon Princes, I definitely get that, but beautiful rear charge here by the Biggins, just smash these spears real quick, but the Orc player, again, having a hard time finding a home, and the lack of missile block chance on these Boar Biggins. I mean, they do have 75 armor, which is pretty good, but it's not amazing. They will take damage over time from those Sea Guards. That being said, the Waz pushing through, you can see the boys finally unblob themselves, well, somewhat. They're still kind of blobbed up, but at least saturating now fully on this engagement here. Dragon Princes are going to have to be careful to not get too bogged down here. They'll be very important for getting high shock damage rear charges. Grimgore's also taking a decent amount of damage here, not too much, but these Orc Biggins get routed by a timely rear charge by the Princess. That's going to free up these White Lions to try and protect against these other units. Princess does need to be careful not to get caught by Grimgore, though. And it looks like another Gorkle Fix-It here. Yeah, I'm not really sure about that. Not sure if he just brought it by mistake and thought he was casting the other spell. definitely never done that myself, ever. Not even one time. Don't know why you're asking. But yeah, Lothern Seaguar is able to pull away here and maybe get into a position of fire. Secondary wall being popped, which is going to help quite a bit. Greenskins, the boys are actually having a bit of a tough time in this engagement. The Loremaster of Hoeth providing some great value here, chopping up some of these low-tier Greenskins infantry. He's also matched up here. I think there was a Night Goblin Shaman. I saw the banner. Yeah, there's a Night Goblin Shaman, in fact, hidden behind him. That the bonus versus infantry and great stats means that the Loremaster will absolutely win that fight. Might take him a little bit of time, I guess, to chop through some of the chaff there, but he does need to be careful. If Grimgor decides to come over here, he will beat down the Loremaster pretty good. Loremaster might get a few hits on Grimgor, but Grimgor's got a lot more HP baseline, although at this point he's basically even, so it could be an interesting fight. The Princess is continuing to kind of lob in shots on the high arc there, and a beautiful charge by these Dragon Princes, catching the boys who had been a little bit anviled, I guess you could say, up against these few Lothern Seaguard that remain. Lothern Seaguard barely holding their leadership together, but they do allow those Dragon Princes to get a beautiful charge. 73 kills on them and climbing rapidly, so interesting. Another pretty close battle. Balance of power still very even. These Black Orcs are fighting the Loremaster. The Loremaster is going to have a hard time against Black Orcs, just their high weapon strength. Again, when they do get hits on him, his low HP pool will definitely work against him there. Looks like another Gork will fix it. But I guess the fact that these Black Orcs are so low on HP does mean their leadership likewise is very low. The Princess is able to come in and support, and this Night Goblin Shaman is shattered. So, good stuff there. Lothern Seaguard's coming back here. We've got one more unit of White Lions, kind of providing a nice little stable melee pocket. But the rest of the High Elf army is definitely kind of scattered to the winds a little bit here. Boys are somewhat unified. Rusty Airs also hadn't seen, but I guess have used up half their ammo, so must have gotten some value, I guess. Nice Spirit Leech on those Black Orcs. I mean, Spirit Leech probably will pick off a handful of unit models there. I don't know, it might have been a misclick. It might have been after actually trying to go after Grimgor, which would make a little bit more sense, but the Spirit Leeches and kind of bow fire from the Princess consistently over time will do a lot of damage to Grimgor. And, yeah, nice little rear charge here by these White Lions. The White Lions able to get a kind of front and back engagement with two different units and rout those Black Orcs. That will leave Grimgor pretty exposed, and the Loremaster can now come in and try and finish him off with his, you know, heroic power. Maybe. Or Grimgor might just rout? Yeah, Grimgor will just rout. That's fine also. That is going to put a pretty severe dent in the balance of power, obviously. Dragon Prince is still operating in his back line as well. They can just get beautiful charges. Probably missed one a little bit earlier, but that's fine. Princess comes down to stop up those Rusty Airs. Lothern Seaguard providing some nice Overwatch fire. Want to turn and fire those nasty Skulkers, but they might just run away because they're goblins. And yeah, Grimgor comes back from rout, but the Princess, you see how Sarmation gets nice and close as well in the range of the Princess. I guess he was gonna, I thought he was gonna shoot Grimgor there, but it looks like instead actually opting to go after that Night Goblin Shaman, which is actually a pretty good call. He doesn't have a lot of HP, won't take a lot to take him out, and if you do take him out, that's another big blow to the balance of power, but Grimgor does have one more Wah in his pocket, so the boys up for one last push here, gonna get some good attack, and that'll probably be the end of those White Lions there, unfortunately, but doesn't help another Night Goblin Shaman win against the Loremaster. It's not helping these Rusty Airs much against the Dragon Princes as well, although the few big uns, I guess, that are over here might get some benefit from that. But this is definitely a build. I might take this build with the Nagarythe faction, just so that I can get the fancy-looking Dragon Princes with their tuxedos. It's a beautiful build, to be honest. I would say, obviously, having Terror would make it objectively stronger against the Greenskins, but yeah, it's too bad High Elves don't have access to Lore of Beasts, to be honest. If you could just get the Manticore summon with a build like this, like imagine, if you will, the High Elves had Lore of Beasts for their generic hero casters. I mean, the Loremaster has some good killing power, and the Spirit Leech kind of combo with Earthblood definitely gives him some good utility, so I like the use of him here, certainly, but imagine a build like this, where you just take maybe a separate caster, you know, hero level caster, just to summon Manticores, give you some kind of terror at least, on command. Yeah, could potentially be good if Creative Assembly would ever do the High Elves justice and give them all the lores of magic, all the common lores of magic, quote-unquote, plus high magic, which is what they're supposed to have, it would definitely work in their favor. Like, could you imagine lore of metal with a build like this as well? You know, maybe not so much against the greenskins, but just in general, having Plague of Rust with massive, like, Lothern Seaguard and Archer lines would be exceptionally powerful, so really looking forward to that. But anyway, we've got one more replay to get to, so yeah, let's take a look. And, of course, best for last, the boy himself, Tyrion, or the elf himself. Yes, that sounds better. The elf himself, Tyrion, coming in here against Lizardmen. And once again, both players have brought no single entity monsters, which is a nice, refreshing change, honestly. Nice to see some battles not so reliant on those big monsters. Here we've got 2 Silver Helms, more White Lions, 4 Lothern Seaguard, once again, Lore Master of Hoeth. We've also got Eagle Claw Bolt Throwers, a Spearman up front. As for the Lizardmen, going to be led by Gorok. We've got some Skink Skirmishers, Saurus Spears, and Saurus. So quite a wide infantry line, kind of a flanking force of Skink cohort here with some chevrons. Very interesting. Colossadon Hunters and Cold One Spear Riders. Some Chameleons over here. Very interesting builds. Both very wide and kind of not what you would expect here. So Formation's going to set himself up, try and get some shots on whatever he can see, basically, while the Lizardmen approach. Switches to single shot to go after Gorok. That's a pretty good play. Gorok's a little bit of a small target, so kind of towards the edge of this range, he's probably not going to take too much damage, but yeah, the Skink Skirmishers, Chameleon Skinks come forward, start to poke at these Spearmen, which is fine. Spearmen have a pretty good missile block chance. They'll be able to resist most of that fire. It'll take some damage, definitely, but yeah. Sarmation playing this one very patiently. You can see he's kind of got this rock formation here, so there's a little bit of a space where the Lizardman can potentially flank around, but does have his flank here pretty secure, and the Silver Helms will be able to kind of push forward, and because the Saurus Spears are way out of position, not in any capacity to support there, you can see the Silver Helms are very threatening. Skink Skirmishers immediately turn around and head for the hills, which is the best that they can hope for, try and get back to that Saurus Spear support. Some of the blocks of Skinks have pushed up and through this line here and are going to be going back and trying to get on some of these ranged units. It's definitely a pretty interesting play there, while the Saurus then come in and actually engage these Spearmen in the front line. This is why you keep a mobile reserve of Shock Cavalry, though, is this exact reason right here. And kind of a spread missile defense build like this, being able to quickly respond and shut down those threats that break through your line, especially lighter units like Skink Cohort. All those chevrons are going to be for very little. Meanwhile, over here, this unit I thought was going to come get on these bolt throwers, but instead decided to go after those Lothern Seaguard. They did kind of get on the corner of this bolt thrower a little bit, but the White Lions will come in and end that in a big hurry. Meanwhile, the Colossadon Hunters come down. They are going to absolutely wreck this unit of Silver Helms, but at the same time, they're in the center of this crossfire situation where all of these Lothern Seaguard and the bolt throwers can fire in, and that's a very expensive unit to be losing. Trading them for Silver Helms is not cost effective whatsoever. So that's a little bit of a rough situation for the Lizardmen, but certainly they've still got quite a bit of sustaining power. All these Saurus, it's going to be a lot to deal with. It's just a wave of kind of mid-tier infantry. Heavy mass, not necessarily super heavy armor, but heavy mass mid-tier infantry. And a Chain Lightning in the back line from the Skink Priest Lore of Heavens. Unfortunately, doesn't get the best contact, kind of goes off into the distance there. One thing about Vortex spells, they don't necessarily always, obviously they kind of wander around a little bit, but they generally go in a straight line away from your caster to a degree. Like, you can see how that one kind of wandered up, and it kind of meandered around, but generally, if you were to trace this path, it kind of went in this direction, right? You look at where the Skink is, that kind of makes sense, so in this situation, maybe you would have wanted to maneuver the Skink Priest over to this side and then cast the Chain Lightning down this side. It's still RNG, but you might have better odds of getting good contact on multiple units there. As it is right now, though, Gorok and his Saurus just absolutely pushing forward on all fronts. The Skinks are having a little bit of a hard time with it, but these Lothern Seaguard, because Saurus are relatively slow, and kind of the only mobile units here were the Skinks and the Colossadon Hunters, which were all shut down very quickly. Saurus are going to face a lot of Overwatch fire from the Lothern Seaguards, which they can be very cost-effective at doing. Likewise, these Skinks really don't have the offensive stats to fight the Lothern Seaguards. Like, to a point, Lothern Seaguards are very cost-inefficient fighting low-tier infantry, but Skinks are just low-tier enough. Their stats are actually pretty bad. Um, they really can't even fight Lothern Seaguard, especially with the shields giving them up to 52 melee defense. Like, the Skinks just struggle to make consistent contact with only 23 attack, so it's a rough situation. Tyrion's taking quite a bit of damage, though. I'm not sure, probably from Chameleon Skink fire. He doesn't have any kind of missile block chance. Does have missile resistance and heavy armor, but Chameleon Skinks have decent AP values. Over time, he'll definitely take some damage. Likewise, Sora Spears. I mean, again, relatively low attack, but when they do hit, they'll hit reasonably hard. But Spirit Leech and Tyrion going after this poor little skink bro, who definitely doesn't deserve this. I mean, that Chain Lightning didn't really hurt anyone, right? He doesn't deserve this. Poor little skink bro. He's going to run for the hills if he can. And Tyrion will probably chase him off because he's a big meanie. At this point, though, things are not looking great for the Lizardman. Gorok's Saurus kind of starting to run out of steam against the beautiful missile defense. And the bolt throwers can now start to focus fire on him again specifically. One thing, yeah, I mentioned this a little bit in the last replay, but the High Elves' lack of armor piercing on their missiles is a bit of a problem. Obviously, against like a faction like the Lizardmen, if they were to bring like big, heavily armored dinos, for example, like Lothern Seaguards are just not as cost effective, right? Like Saurus only have 60 armor. You can kind of maneuver up and around to get past their missile block chance. So regular High Elf archers and Lothern Seaguard will be effective against them, but until we get some more Lures of Magic, like, they do tend to struggle somewhat against the large dinos, at least unless you have enough volume of fire, in which case you can certainly get something done. And Tyrion getting some good work done, only 12 kills, but still, just being an absolute raid boss. 49 kills for the Lore Master of Hoeth, 108 for these Mobile Reserve Silver Helms. They paid for themselves despite the Colossodon Hunters coming in and absolutely hunting them. The Overwatch, though, was great from those Lothern Seaguard, 2 with shields, 2 without. That's kind of nice to have the ones with shields out on the flanks to help protect against the Chameleon Skinks, Skink Skirmishers, things like that. And yeah, obviously the extra melee defense, as I mentioned, is quite nice. So a big thanks to Sarmation for sending in those largely monster-free, ALARIELLE-free, and Lore Master of Hoeth replays. Lore Master of Hoeth. This really should be all about him, to be honest, but all the lords coming in who are not ALARIELLE, very nice to see. So a big thanks once again. Hopefully you guys enjoyed watching. If you do like this sort of content, like, subscribe, hit that bell notification button, so every time I upload a new video, you'll be notified. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you next time.